It's August 3rd, 2020, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them up. Number 1, Trump allies rush to excuse his suggestion to delay the election. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Facepalm 5 once again. Let's get right to it. So, you know how lots of people have been warning all along that Donald Trump is a fascist, and we've been waiting for, I don't know, the last 4 years or so for the other Jackboot to drop, and hey, that kind of has a ring to it. Anyway, last week, that other shoe clopped loudly to the floor as Trump brought his months and months of attempting to undermine the legitimacy of mail-in elections, of mail-in voting, to its logical conclusion by tweeting this, quote, "With universal mail-in balloting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. Question mark, question mark, question mark," tweeted the President of the United States. So, a president up for re-election suggesting that we should delay the election. But, don't get all excited. The president does not have the authority to delay the election. Only Congress can do that. And barring some kind of rapidly written and adopted constitutional amendment, the election could only conceivably be delayed for a couple of months. If there's no legitimately elected president come Inauguration Day on 2021, Trump's term still expires. Also, according to Trump's surrogates and lickspittles, isn't that a nice word? Lickspittle. According to Trump's surrogates and lickspittles, when he said, "Let's delay the election," he didn't mean, "Let's delay the election." Come on, you all. The president never actually means what he says, which is fine, apparently. It's our job to figure out what he means. For example, Rush Limbaugh, as he explained on his radio show last week, believes that Trump's suggestion to delay the election, it rhymes, was a kind of counterpunch to his political adversaries who are attacking him for his sociopathic response to the coronavirus pandemic, since the left, which apparently means public health officials, and pretty much everybody with two neurons to rub together, are saying we can't open schools or go back to normal until the coronavirus runs its course. Trump is turning that around on them and saying, okay, fine, then we either have to have mail-in voting or delay the election. The thing is, like much of what Rush Limbaugh says, when you think about that for 2 seconds, it really doesn't make sense, because it's not Trump who is imposing the choice to either do mail-in voting or delay the election. It's the coronavirus. Just like it's not the left who are making it unsafe for schools to reopen. It's the coronavirus, which is a real thing that Trump and his supporters apparently just want us to ignore. Also, if Limbaugh is correct and Trump thinks he's imposing some kind of impossible choice, I've got news for them both. It's not only an easy choice, it's a choice most people have already made. Mail-in voting. It's safe, it's reliable, it's not vulnerable to fraud the way Trump insists it is. It's obviously what we should do in this situation. Trump doesn't think so, and that's another reason why he supposedly suggested delaying the election, to force people to confront the problem with mail-in voting. He tweeted this triumphant tweet after everybody was up in arms, and he was like, aha, it worked. I got them to talk about the problems with mail-in voting. Except the problems Trump talks about don't exist. RNC chair Ronna McDaniel appeared on Fox Business last week and said that Trump is, quote, trying to highlight what many in the media are not paying attention to. We have a huge problem right now with mail-in voting across the country, but the media is paying attention to it. Trump's concerns about the legitimacy of a mail-in election have been investigated and found to be the same as most of Trump's concerns: disingenuous, self-serving, and without factual basis. Fox News political editor Chris Stirewalt told viewers that Trump shouldn't be taken seriously because he's either trying to troll for a reaction or, quote, to sow doubt about the outcome, as in to sow doubt about the outcome of the election. But isn't that kind of serious? To be fair to Stirewalt, in that segment I'm referencing, he doesn't come across as like flagrantly pro-Trump. He characterizes Trump's delay the election tweet as both unprecedented in the history of the presidency and an obvious show of weakness. But a sitting president up for re-election attempting to sow doubt about the result of that election is still kind of fascist, right? Like, maybe we shouldn't just brush it off. Maybe brushing off all the kind of fascist things about Trump and letting them pile up for 4 years is how we got here. Number 2, Trump administration attacks mail-in voting by sabotaging the post office. Speaking of voting by mail, post offices around the country are struggling with major backlogs owing to new procedures put in place by the new Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, who is a major donor to the Republican Party and to Trump's re-election campaign. The new procedures are presented as cost-saving measures and include not allowing employees to work overtime, shutting down sorting machines, and canceling late deliveries. And the result of all this has been mail piling up, undelivered, sometimes for days. If we have a general election this November, where many, perhaps even most voters cast their ballots by mail, you can see how this might be a problem. Voters who request ballots late may not get them in time. Ballots mailed too close to the deadline may not get postmarked in time. This would no doubt be the cause of much confusion as election officials try to decide which ballots they ought to count and which they ought to disqualify. There would be court challenges. We might not even know the election results until weeks after Election Day, which, weirdly enough, is one of the reasons Trump has cited for opposing mail-in voting, though that's probably just because he's thinking like a reality show host and he wants the big moment on TV, the ratings, because that kind of thing matters to him far more than, you know, the integrity of our democracy. According to the Washington Post, in meetings with postal workers, DeJoy has insisted that his relationship with Trump does not affect how he does his job as Postmaster General and that he is committed to voting by mail. But it's hard for me to take that seriously since A, DeJoy still supports President Trump, which at this point automatically tells me a person isn't trustworthy, and B, Trump has sought to discredit and destroy the Postal Service for so long. And it's just kind of funny that the guy who took charge of it the summer before Trump's up for re-election has instituted changes that threaten the ability of the post office to do its job at a time when the post office doing its job could be the thing upon which the election itself rests. Plus, sabotaging a government agency or program, then complaining that it doesn't work, so we should just get rid of it, has been a go-to Republican tactic for decades. They've tried to do it with welfare programs, with the Department of Education, with anti-discrimination laws, with the Affordable Care Act, and now it sure as hell seems like they're doing it with the post office, the fucking post office, because they're afraid their guy is going to lose to Joe Biden unless they can stop a whole bunch of people from voting. Oh, and that's another tried and true Republican tactic, isn't it? Voter suppression. They've even been quite open about that in the past. Trump himself has said that with higher levels of voting, there would never be another Republican president, which is the real reason he's afraid of mail-in voting, not because it's fraudulent or unreliable, because it's easy. So if he can't stop election boards from sending out mail-in ballots, and he can't stop voters from filling them out and sending them back, maybe he can stop the post office from delivering them. So, yeah, when the Postmaster General is Trump's buddy and a major Republican donor, and he says, oh, no, I'm not trying to wreck the post office or undermine the ability to hold a mail-in election, perish the thought. I don't know. I just don't find that very credible. Number 3, Attorney General Barr repeats Trump's lies in congressional testimony. Speaking of shit I don't find very credible, last week, President Trump's personal Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr, testified before the House Judiciary Committee and was questioned about his using the Justice Department as a political weapon to protect Trump. Barr denied this, insisting that Trump was not influencing his decisions as Attorney General and that his various decisions that have benefited friends of Trump, such as dropping charges against Michael Flynn or reducing the sentence recommendation for Roger Stone, were influenced by a concern for the rule of law, not done as a favor to Trump. Come on, what are you guys thinking? Sorry, I'm pausing for a laugh. Okay, Barr also justified the decision to send federal agents into Portland, Oregon, causing the protests against the federal courthouse there, quote, an assault on the government of the United States. Think about that. That's what the Attorney General of the United States said to Congress. Unidentified federal agents have arrested people who weren't even at a protest and taken them away in unmarked vans. And Barr says that the protesters in Portland are assaulting the government. It is unbelievable. He also denied that systemic racism is a problem with policing, which at this point is a little like denying clueless incompetence was a problem with the Keystone Cops. He sought to justify Trump's paranoia about voting by mail, claiming he was concerned that mail-in ballots were vulnerable to large-scale foreign meddling, despite there being absolutely no evidence suggesting that this is a legitimate concern. And also, anytime a Trump official expresses concern over foreign election meddling, I assume they're being disingenuous because, you know, actually, foreign election meddling did come up another time during Barr's testimony. He was asked by Representative David Cicilline of Rhode Island, quote, is it ever appropriate, sir, for the president to solicit or accept foreign assistance in an election? And Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, responded, quote, it depends what kind of assistance. Now remember that, because next, Representative Cicilline rephrased his question slightly and asked Barr, is it ever appropriate for the president or a presidential candidate to accept or solicit foreign assistance of any kind in his or her election? And Barr's answer to that question was, no, it's not appropriate. Not only is it not appropriate, it's illegal, which I don't know ought to be of concern to the head of the Justice Department and all. But it's not just that. Did you catch how utterly nonsensical Barr's answers to Representative Cicilline's questions were? First, Barr is asked, is it appropriate for the president to solicit or accept foreign assistance in an election? And Barr says, it depends what kind of assistance. So Cicilline asks him, is it appropriate for the president to solicit or accept foreign assistance of any kind in an election? And Barr says, no. So, what the fuck? Is foreign assistance okay? Depends what kind. Any kind? No. Any kind is not okay. I feel like when he was a kid, Bill Barr heard the story of the 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody, and he was just utterly fucking baffled by it. Number 4, Republicans continue to support and endorse QAnon. So last week, Media Matters reported that the California Republican Party has officially endorsed at least 4 congressional candidates vying to represent the state who have expressed support for QAnon, which is the bizarre online conspiracy theory that claims Donald Trump is waging a secret war against a global child sex ring that is operated by agents of the deep state. Besides being baseless and delusional, QAnon has also been linked to acts of violence, but the dipshits who believe it and spread it around love Donald Trump, so it's okay, I guess. I suppose one could argue that we're now heading into the general election, and it's really not unusual for a political party to endorse candidates that are members of it. The California GOP isn't endorsing these candidates because they're QAnon supporters. It's just that they're the Republicans running for those seats. But I think it's important to note that QAnon is not a deal breaker as far as the endorsement of the Republican Party of a major state is concerned. And also that QAnon has become so acceptable that 4 officially endorsed candidates for Congress are on the ballot in California who have promoted or expressed support for it. I mean, imagine if a major party candidate for Congress or the U.S. Senate or the President of the United States believed the Apollo moon landings were a hoax, and often publicly said so, or believed and declared that the 9/11 attacks were an inside job. Actually, you don't have to imagine it, because Donald Trump spent years pushing the conspiracy theory that Barack Obama was not actually a natural-born citizen of this country. So really, it's fitting that QAnon has taken root in the dimmer corners of the internet and the Republican Party during the administration of Donald Trump and centers on his alleged secret heroism. What could be more appropriate than a conspiracy theory about our conspiracy theorist president? And now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. He announced he was going to throw out the first pitch at a New York Yankees game on August 15th. Just one problem. The Yankees never invited him, and no one at the White House ever asked. Trump just kinda said it. Trump's announcement was apparently an impulsive attempt to compete with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was about to throw out the first pitch at a Washington Nationals game that day because the President of the United States is a petty little child. Speaking of Fauci, Trump retweeted a clip of Fauci telling Congress that the reason the coronavirus pandemic is currently surging here in the U.S. while Europe is doing much better is that the U.S. did not shut down its economy enough or for long enough a time. And Trump commented, "Wrong. We have more cases." What do you think he's going to say? What do you think he's going to say? "We have more cases because we have tested more than any other country. 60 million. If we tested less, there would be less cases." Now, this has been explained and explained and explained again. It's not just that we do more testing. Actually, per capita, we don't do as much testing as some other countries have done. But whatever. We do a lot of testing. Okay. We can tell by the rate of positive tests that it's more than that it's more than we're just finding cases because we're doing a lot more testing and the pandemic isn't actually getting any worse. We can tell from the positivity rate that more people are getting sick, that people are actually getting sick. Trump doesn't understand that, and he doesn't want to understand. He's the worst kind of person to be in charge of something, a complete fool who thinks he's got everything figured out. He's too fucking ignorant to even know how ignorant he is. He made one of his most thinly veiled appeals to racism and white insecurity yet, announcing a change in an Obama-era federal housing rule by tweeting, quote, "I am happy to inform all of the people living their suburban lifestyle dream that you will no longer be bothered or financially hurt by having low-income housing built in your neighborhood. Translation, I just made it harder for black people to buy nice houses. So, we good?" He announced that the U.S. is withdrawing 12,000 troops from Germany, explaining, quote, they're there to protect Germany, right? And Germany is supposed to pay for it. Germany's not paying for it. We don't want to be the suckers anymore. Let me try to explain this. The United States military is not supposed to be a force of mercenaries for hire. Okay? Our troops are there to protect Germany, yes, but also to protect us, to protect our interests, to allow us to respond quickly if a hostile nation attacks our allies or our interests in that part of the world, or there's some kind of emergency that demands a military response from us. So no, Germany isn't paying for it. The Germans are allowing us to station tens of thousands of troops in their territory because it is in the interest of both our countries for us to do so. They aren't paying us for protection. We're not the mob. Well, okay, not in this particular case. Oh, and by the way, since the whole justification for this move is supposedly that Germany owes us all this money, money is so important, we're suckers for losing money on this, you should probably know that moving that many troops, bringing them home, redeploying some of them to other parts of Europe, is going to cost us billions of dollars, according to the Secretary of Defense. So that'll show those Germans for not paying us whatever they're supposed to pay us in whatever imaginary way Trump thinks it works. After Nevada passed a bill to automatically send out mail-in general election ballots to all registered voters in the state, Trump tweeted that the state legislators who passed the bill had conducted, quote, an illegal coup that made it impossible for Republicans to win the state. I'm just going to summarize what happened there. Elected representatives passed a law to send ballots to registered voters. That's what he calls an illegal coup that has made it impossible for Republicans to win the state. Sending ballots to voters before an election. And finally, 2 weeks ago, during his interview with Fox News Channel's Chris Wallace, which I talked about during the last episode in this series, if y'all were watching and you remember, Trump promised that he would be signing, quote, a full and complete healthcare plan within 2 weeks. Well, it's been 2 weeks. Guess what? No healthcare plan, no semblance of a healthcare plan, no plan being assembled, no bills before Congress being debated. Trump and his underlings at the White House and in Congress can't even decide if this new plan is legislation or an executive order. Not that it matters, since apparently no draft of an executive order exists either. And also, the president can't just unilaterally implement a full and complete healthcare plan that replaces pre-existing legislation like the Affordable Care Act through an executive order. But this isn't the first time Trump has done this. A little over a year ago, he boasted that within 2 months, he was going to announce a phenomenal new healthcare plan. And it never happened. When the 2 months passed with no plan, reporters asked White House counsel Kellyanne Conway about it. And she claimed the plan was well underway, that she'd been in meetings about it, that the plan was really impressive. That was a year ago. No plan. No announcement of a plan. Nothing. Trump says we're suckers for having troops in Germany, but you know who's a sucker? Anyone who believes a word this motherfucker says. Well, please stay tuned for the post show if you like. We'll hang out in the live chat for a little while, but for now, that's 5. Speak out, act out, resist. Look after each other. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the post show. Sorry for the longer than usual delay. I saw in the live chat Dana said drink up. I guess as a reference to speak out, act out, resist, and drink up, right? I unfortunately no alcohol, but I do feel like I can use a drink. So anyway, welcome to the post show, everybody. I saw I got a super chat from Danny Thompson. Thank you, Danny, very much. Before I get too far into hanging out with the live chat, I do want to acknowledge my newest Patreon patrons since last time. So let's just put their names up on the screen right now, and I'll move over so you can still see me. Hi. Fernando Nogales, thank you, Fernanda. Madison D, thank you, Madison. David and his sack of soy, thank you, David. Siamak Yamin Afshar, thank you, Siamak. Benjamin Moose, thank you, Benjamin. Matthew Lorty, thank you, Matthew. Bottom Dollar, thank you, Bottom Dollar. Ashra, thank you, Ashra. Arthur and Sharon, thank you, Arthur and Sharon. Eric Neff, thank you, Eric. Bo with a Bang, thank you, Bo with a Bang. Stephen Munn, thank you, Stephen. M. Nee Sadak, thank you, M. Nee Sadak. And Emily Wibble, or Weibel. I apologize, whichever one of those was a mispronunciation. Thank you, Emily. Thanks to everybody. And there's Fernanda in the live chat. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for being a patron at whatever level you are a patron, however long you have been a patron. Since I'm talking about it, I'll go ahead and throw the link up. It's patreon.com/Steve Shives if you want to be a patron of my work here on YouTube and help me out a little bit. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure I will shill that again by the end of the show. So what are we talking about in the live chat? Let's see what everybody is saying. Dear Alta Trekkie, hey-oh, how are you doing? I'm hanging in there. Dear Alta Trekkie. Sci-Fi 2285 says, but the plan was supposed to be a huge secret. Those leakers at the failing New York Times hurt dear leader's feelings, which is why he hasn't been able to bring himself to introduce the plan. That's probably it. There's probably a really awesome super secret plan just sitting on his desk. And he's just, he doesn't, you know what it is? He doesn't want to show it because the fake news doesn't deserve to see it. The fake news doesn't deserve to see that. 255 AD says, who is playing Novation in your last Whirlpool vid? I saw a couple people already answered that in the chat, but just in case, so everybody knows it, Novation in the last Whirlpool video was played by the one and only Jason Harding, who is the puppet master of Opinionville and is also the genius behind the Late Seating podcast and the Ensign's Log podcast, and indeed all of the Let Me Listen podcasts. That was my old buddy Jason doing the voice of Novation, and he will be appearing as Novation in the next episode as well. What am I drinking? I'm drinking. It's just plain grocery store brand seltzer because it's like soda, but it doesn't have all the sugar and stuff in it that soda has that'll kill you or destroy your health or whatever. Isaiah Taylor says, I want to have a Thelma and Louise moment and run the fuck away. My roommates suck. Oh God, I'm real sorry to hear that. That sucks. I'm really sorry to hear that. Hey, Leto Anwar is here. Hi, Leto. And Jesse Gender is here. Hi, Jesse. Some random geek says, 255 AD, that was Jason hardening. I mean, he is getting old. His arteries are probably hardening a little. It's Mose, but thank you for... Okay, sorry about that. Mose. Radical Bacon, I stopped my calc homework for this one. Now the pressure is on. David Colby says, as the death toll rushes closer and closer to 200,000, how violent do your fantasies get involving the wealthy elites who allowed the Rona to do such damage? I mean, they're not like specifically violent. I don't have like specific violent fantasies. about them, but my generalized rage grows by the moment. And Aaron O'Connor, I'm sorry that I didn't recognize your super chat right when I saw it, Aaron. I apologize. But Aaron drops in a super chat and says, "Hey Steve, love the live shows. Question not about politics. Star Trek Lower Decks thoughts, and always trans lives are valid lives. Oh, and also I guess Trump crippling male. Well, yeah. Thanks for the trans lives are valid lives. That we can't say that enough." Yeah, it's funny. I was supposed to do a live show on Trek Central yesterday, but unfortunately, Bree, who was going to host it, was having some technical issues, and we didn't get to do it. So hopefully, I'm going to be back on there to talk about Lower Decks with her in a couple of weeks. But I will say I'm going to watch the first episode, and I am looking forward to it. I'm not as excited about it as I am for season 3 of Discovery, but I am more excited about it than I was before I saw the Comic-Con panel. When I saw the cast and the showrunner, talking about it on the Comic-Con panel, that got me a little bit more interested in it, because they were talking about they didn't just want to do like a funny cartoon show, but they actually wanted it to be a Star Trek show. So that made me a little more optimistic about it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not bouncing off the walls. I can't wait for it, but I am looking forward to it. And as I think I managed to, as Bree pointed out in the short portion of our live stream yesterday, before everything just completely cut out and she had to kill the stream, right after the season of Lower Decks is finished, the 3rd season of Discovery begins. So there will be 23 straight weeks of brand new Star Trek, which I am really looking forward to. You have no idea. You have no idea how much I'm looking forward to being able to watch brand new Star Trek for 23 weeks in a row. So yeah, I'm not as excited about Lower Decks as some people, but I am really intrigued and interested to see it. Secular Scholar says, what do you think of people who'd vote Democrat registering as a Republican in red states so as to vote more moderate Republicans in primaries? I mean, I guess that strategy could work. It could help to moderate the Republican Party, I suppose. So even if the Republicans do win the general election, it wouldn't be as bad as it could have been if a far more conservative Republican. I mean, I guess maybe that's a valid strategy. I mean, I guess if they're in red states anyway. Davlin Gage Sphere says, if they were to make an actual enterprise, what admiral or captain would you like to be the real first captain? Who would be the real first captain? I guess the responsible choice is Picard. Like if they build a real enterprise and you're picking someone, then or do you mean like a real person? If you mean like a real person, pick an astronaut. Pick who was the guy who was what was his fucking name? I can't think of his name now. But the guy who was who was on the space station for like a year. I can't think of his name. Make him the captain. I don't know. Or Barack Obama. Make Barack Obama. Oh man, if there's a real enterprise and you want a real person to be the captain, make Barack Obama the captain, because boy, that'll piss people off. Dana asks, why does your Trump sound like Arnold? I don't think my Trump sounds like Arnold. This is my Arnold. And you know how I get into the Arnold voice? You know how I do it? I think of the Batman and Robin. I think of Mr. Freeze and the Batman and Robin. And I think of Mr. Freeze's lines from that movie. And I think, you're not putting me in the cooler. Or I think, cool party. Or I think, stay cool, bird boy. Because Arnold, you could tell Arnold had some trouble with that. So, I don't know, maybe my Trump did sound a little bit like Arnold. Actually, that sounded more like Stuffy just now. Oh, God. That will not be a plot twist in the upcoming run of Stephen Stuffy. Stuffy will not turn into Donald Trump. I don't know. Trump is very hard. It's a very difficult voice to get into because you can find the cadence very easily. but it's the voice. Because sometimes I forget how high-pitched his voice can become. So it's tough. But I must disagree with you, Dana. I do not think it sounds anything like Arnold. I don't think my Arnold sounds like Arnold either, by the way. But, you know, when I'm making the attempt, I do feel as though it's a different voice. Deralta Trekkie says, do you think there is a chance that Trump is not returning as president? Yes, of course. I think there's an excellent chance that he is not returning as president. I'm not taking it for granted, but I do think there's an excellent chance, yes. Sereno Geek says, are you ready for America having a standing army and being the world police? I mean, all cops are bastards, right? I mean, are you really for America having a standing army being the world police? No, I'm not. I mean, I will say this. I do not have a problem. I do not have a huge problem with America having a standing army and having troops stationed overseas in places where we are welcome. Now, do I think the world in general would be better off if there weren't standing armies? Yes, of course. Do I think the world in general would be better off if we did not have a standing army, or at least not so large of a standing army? Yes, of course. Of course I do. But I do not have a huge problem with our military being stationed in other places as long as we are welcome to be there. I mean, if the Germans said, hey, guys, get the fuck out, and we refuse to leave, that would be a problem. And no, I do not think we should be acting like the world police. I think we should be doing like I described in the first part of the show. The troops should be there if they are welcome, if it's determined that there is some strategic interest of ours, if they're there to help protect our allies, to help protect our own interests in the region, not to be the world police, but just to be there if they are needed. You know. Harry Garrison says, have you seen the trailer for Lovecraft Country? I've seen people, I've seen, like, I haven't watched it. No, I haven't watched it. I'm not sure if that's something I'm going to be, like, super interested in. I mean, maybe, I don't know. 255 AD, was he also the guy in the picture, meaning Jason? Yes, that was Jason. That was a picture of Jason as Novation, and that was his voice as Novation, absolutely. Aaron O'Connor, my boy, Seltzer is the best. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Davlin Gage Sphere question. You wake up with the powers of Superman. What would you do? Save the world. Flint Reed says, thanks to you and Jason for the Tholian fan. Yet another brilliant chuckle, and he is right. Bring back Spot. That was such a fun episode to make. I cannot tell you how fun that was such a fun episode to make. And actually, the episode that we recorded last week that will go up this Friday is also a really good one and was a lot of fun to record. So hopefully those of you who are Ensign's Log fans will enjoy that one as well. 255 AD says, why is everyone in the One True Church shunning Michael? I mean, like, more than normal. It's not that, well, they're not shunning. I think the idea of the show is that Michael has always been kind of like a mild embarrassment to the church. So they're not shunning him. They're just sort of keeping him at a distance. And if they're shunning him more than usual, like the bit in the last episode where he's talking about how they don't return his calls, et cetera, that's because of the Novation situation specifically. That's not because they just decided, now we're going to, treat Michael even worse. It's that, generally speaking, I don't think any of them really like him. And that, it's never been explained, but I hope it's sort of implied that that's the reason why there is that first disclaimer at the end of the video after the segment is over and it goes to black. The first disclaimer is actually a fictional disclaimer that says the views of Michael Worley do not represent those of the One True Church. And my idea as the creator there is, like, the One True Church asked him to put that there so that people watching it would not assume that he was an official spokesperson for the church. Deralta Trekkie says, question, do you think people will remember... No, it just jumped up on me. Hang on. I got to find it again because I'm super behind. Do you think people will remember Christopher Judge more for Teal'c over on Stargate or for Kratos over on God of War? If I don't know, I mean, Stargate was on for a long time. Like Stargate was on for a long time, and I know that obviously God of War has a large fan base, but Stargate was on for a long time and has a pretty significant fan base. So I would think about that. Got that funk. Hi, Steve. Who's your fave pick for VP? No fence sitting. I haven't heard her name mentioned as much as I would like, but I was pulling for Stacey Abrams. And I mean, hopefully she still gets it. I know she was she was very highly touted a few weeks ago, and then she's kind of faded into the background. I will say this: of all of the major names I have heard thrown around as being seriously in the running, like Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren or Stacey Abrams. I would be happy with any of those. Honestly, I would be happy with any of those. But if you say who am I rooting for, I'm probably rooting for Stacey Abrams. Alice Ashton says, "Do you know about the Vanessa Guillen protest?" I that sounds familiar, but I don't want to say anything because I'm not sure I know what it is. I feel like I feel like I know, but I don't. So I need to look that up or have somebody remind me. Jesse Gender says, Bree is a wonderful human. I was sad you two couldn't talk yesterday. Also, I'm honestly so pumped for Lower Decks. It's time Star Trek got lovingly ribbed. Yeah, I hope it's funny. And yeah, Bree is great. Like Bree is awesome. And I did a show with her a couple months ago. And actually, we were talking at the beginning of the show we were going to do yesterday. I was like, do you realize it's only been 3 months since I did your show the last time? And it feels like it's been about a year and a half because it just seems like this has been the longest fucking year ever. But yeah, Bree is great, and hopefully, and I'm looking forward to being on her stream again so we can actually, have a show. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I could tell she was really frustrated with the technical difficulties, and obviously it wasn't her fault. But yeah, she's great. 255 AD says, would you want to see a 29th century Star Trek series oriented around time travel? I mean, I would love to see a Star Trek series oriented around time travel, regardless of what its native era was. I think that's just a really cool conceit. I just saw a super chat from Aaron says, Stargate SG-1. Also, I'd rather not have Kamala Harris because of her record on jailing trans people. Yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris has a very troubling record. I feel like she has come around on some of that, but at the same time, I'm not a trans person. So, I mean, if a trans person says, fuck her, that's it. I'm not voting for her, period. She can fuck off. Like, I completely respect that. I feel like she has come forward on a lot of issues. But like I said, I'm really hoping for Stacey Abrams, Davlin Gatesfair. Okay, so you wake up one day with the powers of Superman. The first 5 things you would do. What? Saving the world isn't enough for you? The first 5 things I would do. Saving the world isn't enough for you. You've got to drag a specific answer out of me. Throw Trump into the sun. Because I have the powers of Superman, not the ethics, right? So I would throw Trump into the sun. Throw Mike Pence into the sun. Throw Mitch McConnell into the sun. That's 3. Throw Vladimir Putin into the sun. That's 4. Throw Boris Johnson into the sun. That's 5. So those are the first 5 things I would do. I would do those real quick, and then I would do the 6th thing. Jordan Joan P says, do you ever catch tuning out the news? If so, what do you think of it? Not really. Yes, Chris Hadfield, Neil Blumgarten. Yes, Chris Hadfield is the guy. And, Scott Kelly would be good too. Yeah, Pandora 576 says Scott Kelly. Neil Blumengarten says Chris Hadfield. Both astronauts, both awesome, both terrific choices for the captain of the real Enterprise. Dana asks, why is Picard the responsible choice? Just let me show you something, okay? Okay, come on. Do you Do you see the responsibility in that face? Look at that. And that is, this is a scale and very, very lifelike representation. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it's not the real Picard. I'm not that deluded. I don't think it's the real Picard, but it's a representation. I feel like it captures his likeness. Look at the responsibility. Look at the maturity. Look at the wisdom in that face. Are you going to really tell me, Dana? Are you really going to tell me that this is not the responsible choice? This is a grown man. This is a man who's been places and done things and had experiences and had triumph. He has known the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. He has known exultation and he has known regret. And he is the man to lead us. But actually, I think I misunderstood the question, because I think they were asking me what, like, a real person. But if they built a real Enterprise and they wanted a Star Trek person, that's the guy right there. David Colby says, no, make me the captain. Oh, Seal 0626, Mae Jemison. Now that would be cool, because yes, she is awesome. And also she did a guest appearance in TNG. So she has, like, Star Trek cred plus astronaut cred. Yeah, Mae Jemison is a really good choice too. Alice, and when Obama's the captain of the real Enterprise, he'll wear a brown suit. Exactly, it's perfect. Some random geek says, which is the lesser of two evils? Corporate capitalism like the US and the UK, or state capitalism like Cuba or Vietnam? Ooh, boy, that's a tough one. I don't know. That's tough, because, like, I mean, I've never gotten the impression that, like, Cuba has been that great of a place to live if you're just a common working person. You know, it's tough. I mean, you said lesser of two evils. I would say maybe corporate capitalism, just because I feel like that would be a little easier to reform without resorting to violence. If enough of us wanted to, I mean. But yeah, yeah. And Isaiah says Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly would be a really cool captain of the Enterprise. And Shimon Dixon Nyman says about the vote by mail coup, Utah is a very red state while voting by mail. So if Republicans lose, that says more about Republicans than fraud. Yeah, exactly. Like, isn't that, whenever Republicans whine about how mail-in voting, whine about how mail-in voting or high voter turnout in general is, like, unfair to them, isn't that, like, just the biggest self-own possible? Aren't they just admitting that if a lot of people vote, they're going to lose because they're not actually that popular, because the only way they can win elections is by cheating and suppressing the vote? Like, why would you want to say that? Why would you want to just come right out and say, don't let people vote by mail, then we'll lose? Like, I mean, and I know they say that it's like, oh, but we're worried about fraud and ballot harvesting and blah, blah, blah. But we, like, the facts run contrary to that narrative. Like, we know that doesn't really happen, that's not ever been a serious problem in most places. And actually, the only case of it that I know recently of something like that kind of significant election fraud that had to do with mail-in ballots, specifically with absentee ballots, which Trump says are better than mail-in ballots, which they are mail-in ballots. So I don't know, but it was Republicans that did it. Like, it was in North Carolina. I think was it 2016 or 2018? There was a district in North Carolina, a county in North Carolina, where it was found that there was absentee voter fraud, which included ballot harvesting, this thing that Republicans are so afraid that the Democrats are going to do, and it was Republicans that did it so that they could win the election. So, God, there's just so much projection. Dana, you really think Stuffy sounds a lot like Arnold? You think? I always kind of worry that Hans Krieger sounds too much like Arnold, but I mean, sometimes he does, I guess. But Arnold is a lot more. He's not. See, Hans Krieger is more like this. Hello, I'm Hans Krieger. And Arnold is more like this. The mouth goes wider when you do Arnold. And Stuffy's just like this. And so, okay, the mouth does go wide when you do Stuffy. So, The mouth does go wide when you do stuffy. Some Random Geek says, is Batman and Robin an enjoyable movie? I think it is now. I mean, it's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. It's like a terrible movie, but I think I've gotten to the point in my life. I'm a mature enough person. I'm able to, I think it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to laugh at it and to make fun of it and to have a good time. It's not like, I don't think it's a good movie on its own merit at all, but it's an enjoyable movie. Sam Mock says, your Arnold is better than your Trump. I agree. Duralta Trekkie says, your Arnold sounds like Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, doing an Arnold impression. I hope his Arnold impression is good. Harry Garrison, what is the stupidest fake news that you have seen that didn't make the cut for Facepalm 5? There was something this week that I added to my bookmarks that didn't make it in. What was it? Oh, it was okay. It was Gomert contracting COVID, and it's not fake news. I mean, you said fake news. I can't really think of anything that I would characterize as fake news. But there one of the things that I thought about mentioning on the show, but didn't because I couldn't figure. There was other stuff I wanted to mention more, and I just wasn't sure how to do it, how to go about it. But yeah, Louis Gomert contracting COVID and saying that he thinks he got it from the mask. Like he thought, I think I got it because I was wearing a mask so much. All right. And also Herman Cain dying of the fucking thing after he got it at a Trump rally or possibly got it at a Trump rally. Because I noticed some people on Twitter were saying, we don't know for sure if Herman Cain contracted COVID at the Trump rally because he had been doing a lot of traveling up to then. So apparently Herman was not, observing social distancing or paying any serious attention to the pandemic at all. He didn't just go to the Trump rally. He was running around all over the place, caught his ass some COVID, and now he's fucking dead. And you can see how upset I am about it. But that might have made it into it. I just couldn't figure it out. Duralta Trekkie says, should Merkel have written an invoice to Trump as an answer of him wanting us paying money? Yes. I would have loved that. Random Geek says, more Peace Corps. I agree with that. I think that's a really great suggestion. Siamak says, overseas installations allow us to project force more effectively in different parts of the world. Yeah, like there are practical reasons. I mean, especially given the state of the world. You know what I mean? Like, there are practical reasons for us to be there. And I mean, obviously, like when we need to be more mindful of how we project force and when we clearly, if you're going to argue that we have misused our military, I will agree with that 100%. Like we have grossly misused our military. I mean, the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, like we have not projected that force in an ethical and responsible way, but it's still nice to have the option if it is absolutely necessary. Alice Ashton, which one true church? The one true church, Alice. The one true church. Dana, my Arnold literally sounds stuffy. I get jokes. You know how sharp you know how on the ball I am. I'm fucking sharp as a tack. Nothing gets by me at all. Sort of Geek says, it's been 6 months since you've been on Social Justice Alchemy. How long does that feel? It feels like it's been about 2 weeks. Alice, thank you for the update for the info on the Vanessa Gwilyn, or I'm still not sure how to pronounce her last name. It's about military sexual trauma. Okay, I do know this. I remember you're sparking something in my brain. Yes, I do know this. Yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ. Of course, there ought to be protests. I mean, Jesus Christ. And I'm just like, I'm just going like all over the live chat, by the way. So if I miss a question, please don't take it personally as usual. Davlin Gage Sphere says Netflix is The Witcher or The Witcher games. Which Witcher do you like? I have never watched nor played any of it, so I have no opinion. 2 to 5 AD says, did Jason take issue with you making his character 10 years older than yours? I mean, if he does, he should take it up with the universe, because Jason actually is 10 years older than me. So I just made the character the same age as he. So, you know, if he's upset about it, it's, hey, don't drop it on my doorstep, buddy. Robert Mills says, R.I.P. Wilford Brimley. Absolutely. He will be missed. Who the fuck is going to sell our oats now? Like, seriously, who's going to sell our oats and our diabetes medication? Who's going to sell diabetes medication now? Tom Selleck? You really think Tom Selleck can do it? Maybe. Tom Selleck maybe could do it. I mean, he doesn't have the Magnum hair anymore, but he still has the stash. So I think maybe Tom Selleck could do it. Random Geek says, isn't The Matrix a ripoff of Dark City and not as good? I made a video about that like years and years ago. And yes, I wouldn't say The Matrix is a ripoff of Dark City, because a ripoff implies that, like, you know, the Wachowskis saw Dark City and said, let's do that. And I do not think that was the case at all. So I wouldn't say ripoff, but I would say, as I have long said, that The Matrix and Dark City both deal with very, very similar themes, especially as it pertains to the nature of reality. And I just think Dark City has a much more interesting way of going about exploring those themes. And I think, just generally speaking, it's a much better movie. I think, I mean, you could obviously argue that, like, The Matrix is much better as an action movie. Like, maybe The Matrix is more exciting, is more innovative. And there are things in The Matrix that aren't in. I mean, they're not identical thematically, but I've always preferred Dark City. I think Dark City is a masterpiece. Siamak Yamin Offshore says, what do you think of Karen Bass's VP pick? You know, I don't really know a whole lot about her. I don't know if I had even heard her name until I heard people talking about her as a potential VP, and I haven't done my due diligence on that, so I don't really know. Alice Ashton, and then Save the World. Yeah, well, okay, Save the World would be the 7th thing I would do. Joe McClure says, you're just describing how to save the world. Yeah, yes, I know, right? It's great. Darrell Detrecki says, I completed watching Batwoman, awesome show, and I'm so sad that Ruby Rose stopped working on the show. Do you think we get a resolution from... I can't comment because I have not watched Batwoman yet, so I don't know. So I'm sorry about that. But I can't say if I think that the cliffhanger will be resolved or not. Dana says, so it's based on how Picard looks by looking at his face. Do I need to do this again? Look at him. Look at him. All right there. You know what? That's a map. Okay, that face. That's a map. You know what that's a map of? You know what that's a map of? Leadership. Okay? Look at where my finger is. Look at what's going on down there. We didn't talk about this beforehand. So I apologize for overstepping my boundaries there. Harry Garrison, have you read Lindsay Ellis's Axioms? And no, I have not. No, I have not. And nothing against Lindsay. Like, Lindsay is fantastic. I love Lindsay, but I probably won't read it. It just doesn't. I'm probably not going to read it. Like, I'm not going to like. So David Colby says, you can snap your fingers and make one of two things true: superheroes and supervillains are real, or superheroes alone are real, but it's only Batman. Ah, man. I feel like of those two things, I have to go with Batman. Because if you say superheroes and supervillains, I mean, superheroes cause a lot of collateral damage, even in stories that aren't written by fucking objectivist sociopaths like Zack Snyder. So there will be a lot of extra damage and death if like superheroes and supervillains were real, because there's just, like it feels like it's just inevitable. There's a lot of collateral damage. But if it's just Batman, I mean, how much damage could Batman do before he's inevitably either arrested or killed by the police? The Mighty One says, "Get to the chopper. Get to the chopper. I like you. I'll kill you last." True 55 AD says, "Wouldn't life in countries like Cuba and Vietnam be a lot better if half the planet didn't embargo them for being on the wrong side in the Cold War?" You bet your ass it would. You bet your ass it would. Yeah, sorry, Siamak. Did I say the full name last time? I must have been. I'm sorry. I know you said, you told me that before. Just Siamak. I could have sworn I didn't use the full name last time. Yes, Mr. Ultra Trekkie, Tom Selleck is and will ever be Thomas Sullivan Magnum the Fourth. You're goddamn right he will be. You're goddamn right he will be. He will always be Magnum in my heart, and in my heart, Magnum will live forever. John Gingers, I wonder how many people caught COVID-19 from Herman Cain. See, that kind of shit is the reason why I can't take too much. I can't take too much glee when someone when a Trumper catches COVID, or those pastors who are like, there's nothing to this COVID thing, and then like 2 months later you read in the news like, oh, he's fucking dead. Like he caught COVID and he died. Like that's happened a bunch of times during the course of this whole thing, where there'll be some Republican or right-wing shithead who like a few months ago got on TV or got on his Facebook or whatever, and he was like, I'm not wearing no mask, and now he's fucking dead. He's fucking dead. And I can't take too much pleasure in that. I take a little bit of pleasure in it. I can't take too much pleasure in it, though, because I have that same thought of how many people did they infect? Like, how many other people are going to get sick and die because of this fucking shithead? So it tempers my Schadenfreude quite a bit. But there's still a little bit there. Thoughts on 255 AD says, thoughts on the US dollar losing status as the global reserve currency? No thoughts on that. Vian00 says, you need to deconstruct Battlestar Galactica as the anti-Trek show by a Trek show guy, Ron D. Moore. That would be really good. That's a really good idea. I might do that eventually. I have no plans to do that anytime soon, but that sounds promising. Steve, what are your thoughts on Anita Sarkeesian and The Last of Us 2? I recall that you referenced her in an earlier video. Had to look her up. I know almost nothing about The Last of Us 2 or anything that Anita has said about it. I haven't listened to her podcast or seen like a video that she made about it. So, and I haven't played the game. Like, I'm completely out of the loop on The Last of Us 2, and I don't know what Anita said about it. But generally speaking, I'm a massive fan of hers. I think she's fantastic. And some random geek points out a little bit lower, I have been invited on her Star Trek podcast, with her and Ebony a couple of times, and it has been an absolute joy. And I hope they invite me back when they start doing episode reviews. When I assume, though, I don't know if they're doing it for Lower Decks, but if I assume they'll be doing it for season 3 of Discovery, and I would absolutely love to be back on the show because it's a blast and they're both awesome. And I think Anita is great. Dana says, bullshit. You can always comment. You don't actually need to know what you're talking about. People do it all the time. I know, it's called the internet. Mighty Ones, or the Might One says, what do you think about COVID Karens and COVID Chads, and why does Colorado have so many of them? It's, you know what it is? It's all the dope they smoke. I don't know. That's not true. I have no idea why Colorado has so many of them. But I mean, like, the people like that are going to get people killed, that like, you know, they try to go into a store where there's a masks only policy and the store actually enforces the policy, which I've noticed a lot of stores and places around here don't. Like most people are wearing masks, but if someone walks in without one, like the store employees are kind of chill about it, which annoys me. But also it's like they're probably grossly underpaid, so I can't really blame them too much. But yeah, it's, you know, Dorota Trekkie says you should do a stream together with Gigi Edgley and David Hewlett. Well, okay, I don't know who either of those people are, but thank you for the suggestion. 255AD says, would the SEAL character in Stephen Stuffy, I forget his name, get along with Michael Worley? You're thinking of Joff, and yes, I believe he and Michael Worley would get along very well. David Colby, okay, insult Zack Snyder more, please. He's a shitty director. He should have been a cinematographer because he has no idea how to tell a story. He's making movies about superheroes that he clearly doesn't understand and doesn't like. Why would Zack Snyder want to make a Superman movie when he clearly hates Superman and has absolutely no understanding of the character as it has ever existed before his version of the character came to be? He makes movies that have fascist imagery, that have fascist themes, that promote fascism, that view superheroes as agents of fascism, that encourage us to be afraid of our heroes, that encourage us to view our heroes as above us, as stronger than us, as fearful, as people we should worship, not as people we should look to for inspiration and help. His Justice League is gonna fucking suck. Because all of his movies, with the exception of Watchmen, have fucking sucked. He's a piece of shit. Like, the movie 300 actually made me angry. It's one of the only movies, it's one of the only contemporary films I've ever watched. And I think I talked about this when Jason and I reviewed 300 for Late Seating. It's one of the few movies I can say in my adulthood as a 40-year-old man, not a teenager, not like, you know, a grumpy, angsty adolescent with like an axe to grind against the world, but like as a 40-year-old adult man, I can honestly say 300 is a movie that I can say I fucking hate that movie. I hate that movie. I find it disgusting. I find it offensive. Because it's fascism, because it is a glorification of fascism and authoritarianism and violence and misogyny. It's just fucking awful. And I hate it. And Zack Snyder is a piece of shit for making it. Dana, I was hoping I thought about making this joke and I didn't, and I should have known you were the one who was going to make it. Either you or some random geek were going to make it, and you are much more of, you know, on my wavelength with Batman. So like Batman's going to get killed by the cops. He's a white dude. Exactly. And a rich white dude, which the cops don't know, but they could probably sense it. Like the cops, like even though they don't know that it's Bruce Wayne when they're like, when they have Batman and they have their guns on him, like they don't know that it's Bruce Wayne, billionaire playboy, but they could probably smell it. Like they knew he was a white guy. So already they're not going to like go after him too hard, but they also, they put it, they think, oh, look at the car, look at the body armor, look at all the gadgets. And he's clearly a proficient martial artist. That probably took years of training. That's expensive. This guy's got money. Oh yeah, no, we can't kill this guy. This is a rich white guy. Like, you know, cause, I mean, they're detectives, right? They're cops. They're detectives, you know. They'll figure it out. Dorota Trekkie says, in Germany, 17,000 Volidioten, complete idiots, went to a demonstration against Corona and against having to wear the mask. And I'm like, can Trump send us his secret police force? I mean, Trump's secret police force wouldn't go after them. Dana, capitalist pheromones. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Capitalist pheromones, or you know, just the overwhelming evidence of his voluminous wealth. Samok, another as an Iranian American, I kind of tongue in cheek hate 300. Oh, I forgot about that. It's also really fucking racist. I totally forgot about that. In addition to all the other shit I just said, it's also like super fucking racist against Persian people. I guess they were monsters. I guess the ancient Persians who fought the Spartans. I guess they were monsters. Yeah, yeah. 255 AD says, why do you think Voyager has been reevaluated recently? I think because for a lot of people who found it as a child, it was their Star Trek, and now they are grown up and they have a much greater appreciation for it than I did or do. I think that's probably a lot of it, and also maybe some people who are finding it for the first time on streaming services and just honestly like it, and maybe they watch it first, so they don't notice all the ways in which it sort of apes Next Gen, or they haven't watched Deep Space Nine yet, so they can't compare it to Deep Space Nine and see how obviously inferior it is to Deep Space Nine in every possible way. But no, that's just subjective. I think it's something like it's new people finding the show, and it's the fact that people who found the show when they were young and kind of imprinted on it and it became their Star Trek have grown up and have joined the critical conversation. Wow, some random geek, you are just like an MVP in the chat tonight. Here is the late seating episode where Steve and Jason review 300. Spoilers, both hated it. Yes, we did. Yeah. Yeah, Frank Miller is a piece of shit too. For 300, Frank Miller, yeah, you're absolutely right. Frank Miller wrote the original comic and Zack Snyder adapted it. So Frank Miller takes some of the blame for it as well. But I mean, Zack Snyder made the movie, The Might One says, I got really angry at Man of Steel because it's a piece of crap that isn't Superman. It's a shame because Henry Cavill isn't a shit actor. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Henry Cavill is a fine actor. There's nothing wrong with him at all. And he could have been, or could maybe still be a fine Superman. I disagree with you a little bit. I mean, it is Superman. Like, I don't want to be that guy who's like, it's not even real Superman. Like, it is Superman. It's just an interpretation of Superman that I find to be fundamentally at odds with most, if not all, previous depictions of the character in really important fundamental ways. And more important than that, just for my own personal opinion of it, it does not have the parts of Superman that appeal to me and that I connect to. When I think of Superman, I like Superman as the friend. I like Superman when he saves Lois Lane in the first Christopher Reeve movie and she says, "Who are you?" And he says, "A friend." I like that Superman. I like the gentle Superman. I like the Superman who has the power to do almost anything he wants, and he chooses to use that power to help people. That's what really gets to me about Superman. And he doesn't want people to be afraid of him. He goes out of his way to make sure that people aren't afraid of him and that they know that they can trust him and that they know that he will help them if he possibly can, and that he's honest and he's sincere. And I get none of that from the Zack Snyder version. I get none of that. I see just a grim, violent, shallow power fantasy that is so up its own ass with pseudo philosophy that I can, I mean, it's not that it's not Superman. It's that it's not any kind of Superman that I find remotely interesting. Dana says, no, really, don't hold back. How do you really feel about 300? I will, if you really want to know, I will tell you later. Is that an Orioles hat? No, this is a Suns hat. And actually, okay, hat story. As you can see, the Suns hat is getting a little grimy. It's time for a new hat. So the problem is these Suns hats are no longer available, or at least I cannot find one in my size. A black Suns hat with the orange Suns logo. They just don't exist anymore in my size that I could find because the team colors have changed. They don't sell the black hats anymore. So I actually thought about getting an Orioles hat to replace it because I used to wear an Orioles hat way back in the day. I thought, well, I'll get an Orioles hat because it's the same color scheme. It's black and orange. Couldn't find one of those either that I liked in my size. I found a lot of them with like the orange bill. I don't want an orange bill. I want a black bill and a black cap. Couldn't find one of those in my size, and I looked and looked and looked. So I got a new hat. It's not here yet, but I will show everybody the new hat whenever I get it. And it's not of a baseball team. It is a black fitted hat with like a circular logo in the front, but it is not a baseball team. I don't know why I'm being so fucking quiet. Like anybody gives a fuck about my hat. I guess Alice does. But yeah. But anyway, I'm going to have a new hat soon. Other than this one, and other than the Star Trek hat that I wear for the Trek Actually videos. I only get that one out for the Star Trek videos. Some random geek, even better. Tell us how you really feel about Batman v Superman. It's fucking terrible. It's even worse than Man of Steel. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's absolutely fucking horrible. What's really bad about it is that, and what's really annoying about Zack Snyder's Superman in general is that he's the biggest fucking asshole in the world, but everybody in the movie treats him like he's some other version of Superman. Like they talk about Superman in the movie as though it's like the Christopher Reeve version of Superman. Like he's like this great hero and champion of the oppressed. Like he's this great savior. And he's just a brooding fucking asshole. Like they want us to see him as this great hero, this great shining light, and he doesn't act that way. They don't show us that. He's not that guy, which is annoying. And it's like, of course Batman wants to kill him. He's a prick. And he kills people. Like he destroyed half of Metropolis, and then he decided to make out with his girlfriend instead of going into the rubble and trying to help people. So I hope Batman does kill the motherfucker. Yeah. Proxy Mail says, is there such a thing as a radical feminist? Describe it. What do you think is effective feminist activism versus toxic behavior? Do you think there is a limit to pushback? Being a man, I am not the best source to go to for the definition of a well, I can tell you the definition of a radical feminist, but as to what do I think, I'm not going to get into critiquing feminist activism or anything like that, because I just don't think that's my place to do that. But radical feminism, the textbook definition of radical feminism is feminism that focuses on the dismantling of the patriarchy and sees things through that lens primarily. That is the definition of radical feminism. A feminist who focuses on patriarchy and getting rid of it. So that's a radical feminist. But as to the other parts of the question, I don't feel comfortable getting into. I'm not going to be like a guy on my live stream by myself going, and let me tell you what feminism should do to be most effective. Like I'm not going to do that. Harry Garrison says, do you remember that one story in Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader about how Alfred was behind all the Supercross in Gotham with the GCPD just so Bruce had a hobby? I don't remember that. Oh, that's funny. God damn it. 255 AD says, would you rather be a prehistoric British hunter-gatherer in 6000 BC or a prehistoric British farmer in 6 BC? I don't know. Hunter-gatherer in 6000 BC, because, I mean, honestly, would I even know the difference? I mean, farming, who wants to be a farmer? That's like a job. 55 ED says, so Tommy Robinson moved to Spain. I know you're pro-immigration, but aren't there limits? I mean, the UK definitely isn't sending Spain their best. That's great. I agree. Dear Alta Trekkie says, because that is paradoxical. And I have to say, although Dean Cain is apparently an idiot, I liked his Superman. Same with Kevin Sorbo. I like Dylan Hunt. Yeah, I agree. And I like Hercules. I thought Kevin Sorbo's Hercules was great. And it was a fun show. And yeah, the thing about Dean Cain is he was a great Superman. Like, his Superman was fantastic. He was a great Superman. He just apparently did not absorb anything about that character, which is kind of baffling to me. It's like if Patrick Stewart played Captain Picard for 7 years on TV in 4 movies and then came out and it was like, he was a Nazi or something. It's like, what? How does this happen? What? Didn't you pay any attention? Alice Ashton, we need you to get a social justice hat. What would it be? What social justice symbol would you want on the hat? Harry Garrison says, how are they doing this season? My local team, the Rockies, are killing it. So let me look. You mean the Orioles? Because the Suns, let me look up the standings because I don't know off the top of my head. The Suns are not doing anything. The minor league baseball canceled the season, so the Suns are not having any season. But the Orioles are in second place, 2 games behind the Yankees. So good for them. I don't know. I don't know how good they're doing. Maybe let me check the rest of the standings. I guess we're not doing wild card yet. Maybe it's too early to. All right, but yeah, the Royals are doing good. So assuming they keep playing well, they might end up in second place or first place by the time the season is totally canceled because of COVID, because they shouldn't have tried to have a season to begin with. Geraldo Trekkie says, from the DCEU, the Wonder Woman movie is amazing, the Justice League movie is okay, and the rest is a case for the toilet. I would not say Wonder Woman was amazing, but Wonder Woman was definitely much better than the others that I've seen. And I have not seen Justice League and I have not seen Aquaman, but I did see Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman was definitely a big, big, big improvement on Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, for sure. I would not say it's amazing, but it was very good. Siamak says, I hope the storm isn't too bad for you and anyone else in the path of the storm. In Philly here, and we're expecting a lot of rain. But we've mostly just gotten rain. It hasn't been too bad. But yeah, to anybody who is going to feel the effects of it more directly, yes, absolutely. We're hoping for the best. Hope nobody is inundated by it too much. Surname Geek says, if social justice alchemy really takes off, we will make a social justice alchemy baseball cap as merch. Well, if you make a fitted one, I will buy one. Because I'm a snob. I'm a baseball cap snob. I will only wear fitted hats in my size. I get no Velcro on the back, no little holes. No, come on. I don't want to go wear with a little hole with my hair sticking out. I did that shit when I was a teenager. I'm a grown up now. I wear a fitted hat. Okay. Anyway. The Might One says, let's put it this way. I was on an 11-hour flight to Johannesburg, watched Batman versus Superman on the way over. It made the flight longer. Watched Logan on the way back. The flight seemed shorter. Logan's such a good movie, isn't it? God, Logan is such a great movie. David Colby says, I've been watching an anime where everyone has a leitmotif. I want a Star Trek where everyone has a leitmotif. So when Kirk starts speechifying, his theme starts. So we know to cheer. Yeah. You know what I loved is the movie, because Star Trek doesn't usually do that so obviously, but I remember in Star Trek First Contact, Jerry Goldsmith did the score for that, and he of course had also done the score for Star Trek the Motion Picture, and he wrote the famous Klingon march, the Klingon theme, the da 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 da, right? Like that's the Klingon theme. And in Star Trek First Contact, he brought it back and he gave it to Worf. So like Worf is the only character in the movie that actually has his own theme. So when Worf shows up in the Defiant and they're fighting the Borg cube at the beginning, like you hear it again, and Worf is the only Klingon in the whole fucking movie, and you hear da 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 da. Like it's like, oh shit, Worf has a theme. That's cool. Picard ain't got no theme. DK Silo, you are doing a job. You do know that. No, you are doing a service to society. You are being, yeah, I know. God, you're going to ruin it. Dana says, I'm so sad about Dean Cain. It's so disappointing. Right? God. Yeah, I know. He was such a good Superman. Lois and Clark was such a good show. Like, how did Superman from Lois and Clark, how did Clark from Lois and Clark turn out to be such a fucking asshole? 255 AD says, believe it or not, hunter-gatherers actually had it better than most farmers until like 250 years ago. They have diverse diets, whereas farmers just eat like bread and milk 95% of the time. It makes sense. I never thought of it that way, but that makes sense. Oh, Guillen. Thank you. Thank you. Guillen. Guillen. Vanessa Guillen. Sorry. Yeah, thanks, Alice. Now they're not. You're all. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through the chat. Y'all are jumping on my ass for not saying Wonder Woman was amazing. I said it was really good. You know why I say it's not amazing? I just think it falls apart in the last act. I think the last act it turns into CGI fight, and I'm just like, okay, they're just doing a CGI fight. It has some really really good stuff in it. Oh, Serena Butte, Shazam. Shazam is awesome. I will. Yeah, I forgot about Shazam. Shazam is awesome. Shazam is MCU good. Like Shazam is a good enough movie to be an MCU movie. It's Shazam is really really good. And Dana, the trailer for the new Wonder Woman movie looks amazing. And actually, you know what? I had to add that song to my playlist. The version of what is it? Blue Monday that they use for that trailer. I was like, oh fuck. That's in my YouTube playlist now because that song just got in my head. I watched the trailer like 3 times just to hear the song. Serena Geek, my cap size is 7 1/4. I think 7 1/4. Question: how did 255 AD says, how did the Yankees react to Trump just declaring he'd throw the ball at one of their games? Well, they confirmed that he had not been invited. I don't know what. I'm not sure how else they react. I know Trump is friends with the president of the Yankees, so I mean I assume he's going to throw out the first pitch at one of the games eventually. But yeah, his little stunt of just like, oh yeah, he threw a dart at the calendar. It's like, yeah, August 15th, I'm going to throw out the first pitch. Like the Yankees' response was, no, he's not. Like we never set that shit up. Dana says, really good is not enough. I mean, you know what? In some cases, it just has to be. In some cases, you just don't have a choice, and you just have to. You might want more than really good, but really good has to be enough. Dash fat bastard. Does the Wrath of Khan work with leitmotif? I'll have to pay more attention to the Wrath of Khan score next time I watch it, because I remember I love Wrath of Khan's main titles. I love Wrath of Khan's main title theme. It's one of my favorite main title themes of all the Star Trek movies. But I'll have to go back and watch it again and pay more attention to the score through the movie and see if I can. But I mean, I take your word for it. Jemshin says, how do you think flat earthers are handling social distancing? You think it's driven any of them over the edge yet? I think they fell over the edge a long time ago. I think some of them have been dangling over the edge for years and years and years. Throughout the Trek, he says, did you watch the Crisis on Infinite Earths multi-parter? Yes, I did. I loved it. I thought it was great. And the CW Superman is amazing, which I've been saying for years. I love the Tyler Hoechlin Superman. Serenum Geek, no, I have not seen Birds of Prey yet. Yeah, Steve has hair. Yeah. Dana says you always have a choice. It's just that sometimes the options you want aren't available. Ain't that the truth? Um, 255 AD says, would you say platforming a climate denier is just as bad or worse than platforming a Holocaust denier? I mean, Holocaust denier is denying the past, and the climate denier is threatening the future. So, I mean, what's worse? I feel like I don't know. I mean, they're both grotesque, you know. I don't know. Maybe at this, I don't know. Like at this point, maybe a climate denier. I don't know though, because see, fascism is back. So you can't say like a Holocaust denier is just denying history. Like fascism is back. So if you platform a Holocaust denier, you are enabling fascism, which is a present day problem, not just what gee, wasn't that bad 60 years ago problem, right? So yeah. I don't know. Maybe a Holocaust denier is worse. I don't know. It's hard. David Colby, I agree with this completely. Wrath of Khan has a lot to teach modern sci-fi movies. The stakes don't need to be the end of the world. The relatively constrained stakes actually increases the investment. Oh, I absolutely. Every villain does not have to want to destroy the world or destroy the universe. Absolutely right. It does not, or in superhero movies, like they're going to destroy the city. Like a Batman movie, he's going to destroy the city. Like it doesn't have to be that way. Like not every movie has to have like world-ending stakes, right? You're absolutely right. The only thing at stake in the Wrath of Khan there was a theoretical threat, like if Khan was able to take out the Genesis device and develop it into a weapon, there was a theoretical threat that went beyond their confrontation. But the movie focused really on the conflict between Kirk and his people and Khan and his people. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Because we cared about the characters, because we cared about Kirk and we cared about Spock and we cared about the good guys. And Khan was a compelling villain and a fun villain. Like that's all you need. You don't need, the end of the world stakes. I agree with that completely. Yes, Alice, the CW Superman is getting his own show. Superman and Lois, and I'm super excited for it. Harry Garrison, how are you doing with YouTube screwing around with ad revenue? It hasn't affected me all that much. I mean, I've noticed little fluctuations, but it hasn't been a major problem for me. 255 AD says, is Novation a Trump supporter like his brother? No, he is not. Dana says, kind of like holding your nose and voting for Biden. That's exactly the scenario I was thinking of. Yeah, that's exactly the scenario I was thinking of. Geralta Trekkie says, how come that the best Trek films are the ones that deal the least with the Star Trek motive to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and boldly go where no one's gone before? I mean, honestly, most of the best Star Trek period, like films, episodes, whatever, don't really pay too much attention to that. Because seeking out strange new worlds is cool, is fun, is a nice idea, but ultimately a show lives and dies by the characters. And if you care about the characters and you put them in interesting stories, that's what matters. And that's what makes a good, memorable episode or a good, memorable movie. Eric Allen says, usually climate deniers and Holocaust deniers are the same people. Boy, ain't that the truth? Dodo One Ops, what is the logo on the hat? You mean my hat? That's a Hagerstown Suns logo. My local minor league ball team. Geralta Trekkie says Wrath of Khan is not Trek, it's a Navy thriller. Star Trek 4 is not Trek, it's the sixth one is a political thriller. And as Dana says right down below that, like, why can't a thriller be Trek? I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, it obviously it's Star Trek. Like, actually, and honestly, I've said before, Wrath of Khan is my favorite Star Trek. Like if I had to pick one representative of the entire franchise of everything and say, this to me is the heart and soul of Star Trek. This to me, if I had to show a person one thing, if they said, what to you is your favorite Star Trek ever, I would show them Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. I mean, I've said that the Visitor from Deep Space Nine is my favorite episode, but if I was going to pick like a representative of the entire franchise that included a bunch of the stuff that I think makes Star Trek fun and interesting and special, it will be Wrath of Khan. And also aesthetically, I think it's the best film. Some random geek, how does the Lego Batman movie compare to the other Batman movies? I mean, it's pretty high. I really like the Lego Batman movie a lot. It's pretty high. I don't know. I mean, it's not as good as like The Dark Knight. But it's good. I mean, it's really good. It's probably, I don't know. Let me see. How would I rank the Batman movies? I mean, Dark Knight is number one, obviously. What would be number two? And we're going just with theatrical releases, not direct-to-video releases here. So Dark Knight would be number one. After that, it gets real thin real fast, don't it? Maybe Mask of the Phantasm number two, and then Lego Batman number three. We can do that, maybe. Yeah. Or no, I forgot about the 66. Okay, I forgot about the Adam West, because that was a theatrical release. So Dark Knight, Adam West Batman 66, then Mask of the Phantasm, then Lego Batman, then round out the top five with Batman Returns. There's my top five Batman movies. Yeah, and Siamak says, and Khan kind of could have cared less about the device. Right, he was more in it for revenge. Yeah, absolutely right. Like the threat to the rest of the galaxy by the Genesis device was always kind of theoretical. Like they put it in there, and there was that scene where Kirk and Spock and McCoy talked about it, but it wasn't like the driving force of the episode. David Colby says, I heard a Twitter comment that was so brutal. Nothing shows Star Trek is written by white men more than where no man has gone before. Constantly goes to planets that have natives. Yeah, exactly. They like, there's no episode that deals with them finding an uninhabited planet and going, let's catalog the flora and fauna. Like it always starts out like that. And then it turns out, oh shit, there are people here. Right? Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely right. 255 AD says, why did you guys pick baseball over cricket? We picked baseball because we think we invented it. Which we kind of did. Like we sort of smushed a couple of games together and came up with a new game. We kind of invented it. But that's why we picked it, because we think we made it up. Because we kind of did make it up. Alice Ashton, exactly. Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb. Exactly. Don McCauley says, you almost saved an unsub. Phantasm needed to be number two. Phantasm is great. Mask of the Phantasm is a really terrific movie. But yeah, I think I would put Batman 66 up there. Tasby 12, Batman Returns, ooh, gross. See, I have a theory about Batman Returns. I never used to like Batman Returns either. Actually, that's not true. When I was like 12, I really liked Batman Returns. And then I went through my broody, angsty teenage phase when I was like, I want Batman to be taken seriously. And he's, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't like it. And then I grew up and I came back to it. And actually, I think Batman Returns is really, really great if you approach it as a comedy. I think if you watch Batman Returns with the mindset that it is written as an action comedy, it's really, really good. 255 AD says, I can't think of if I can't think of a question by Friday, I might just post the question I have saved for Thomas Smith's next Q&A. Thoughts on maybe getting his sloppy seconds? Ah, boy. You could have just posted the question. Like, you didn't have to say that. You could have just posted the question. I never would have known the difference. Oh, Alice, thanks. If I plan to go to any social justice protests in the near future, let me know and I'll try to meet up with you. That would be nice. I mean, I haven't been to a protest since the Women's March, which is almost 4 years ago. So yes, I would love to go to a protest with you. Absolutely. Oh, Melissa Callanan says, I became a patron member tonight. I wish I could donate more, but I'm a poor public librarian. I just want to say you were awesome, and I'm thankful to my partner Javier for introducing me. Well, oh, that's really sweet. Thank you very much. Thank you for becoming a patron, and thank you for being a librarian. Because boy, I'm not gonna like kiss your ass because I know a lot of people who work for libraries get like, oh, it's so, well, libraries are so great, and then it's like, we don't want to pay you anything. We don't want to let you unionize. We want you to work long hours, for nothing, and we're going to exploit your feelings of love for your community or your love for books or your love, like the fact that you're doing a good job, like a positive, socially redeeming job that like they really play that on you like they do for teachers. It's like you're supposed to be saints. You're supposed to be these selfless people that just throw your bodies upon the crucible. And you're not supposed to expect to get paid or, to have like, I don't know, like basic safety measures in place during a pandemic or whatever. So I'm not going to do that too much, but public libraries are awesome and people who work in public libraries are awesome. And thank you for being one of those. And thank you for being a patron. Yes, and yeah, Dana says, I'm going to miss Friday's live stream because I get to perform in 1984 again. Yes, you do. And I'll be doing the live stream, so I won't be able to watch on Friday, but I will definitely be watching on Saturday to see the final performance. It was a really good show, and obviously Dana was fantastic in it. So I will be watching that on Saturday. Mutant Sword says, will we ever see an MCU release this year? I wouldn't think so. Probably not. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I think, didn't they kind of just push everything back to next year anyway? I mean, didn't Marvel push everything? Because Black Widow was supposed to be this year, but they pushed it to next year. Some random geek says, you would love if Kirk would beam to our planet and our situation to just break something to fix the problem. What if that problem is capitalism and the state? Well, then I would want Kirk to break it and force us to deal with it. 255 AD says, I liked Voyager as a kid, but the YouTube critics kind of put me off it. Was it wrong of me to let you guys put me off a show I genuinely enjoyed as a kid? I don't think it was wrong of you. I don't think you did anything wrong. I think, maybe critics, you allowed critics to influence you, which is something that critics do. So it wasn't, it's not wrong of you to seek out critical content and to put some stock in the opinions of the people that were offering it, whether those opinions were shitty or not. If there's any responsibility to be had, it's on the part of the critics. If a critic should not, I don't think the job of a critic should be to try and stop people from enjoying things, generally speaking. Right. My previous comments about what a fucking piece of shit Zack Snyder is and how awful the movie 300 is aside, generally speaking, I don't think the job of a critic should be to give people reasons why something sucks and why they should feel bad for liking it. But no, you shouldn't feel bad, or you shouldn't, feel like you did anything wrong. It might have been, I will say this. if you genuinely enjoyed the show, then you are justified in enjoying it. And you shouldn't have felt like you had to not like it because people on YouTube were telling you that you shouldn't like it. So if you allowed, if you like, maybe like if you stopped yourself from watching a show that you really liked, you know, but I don't know. Oh, Serious Mind. Yeah, we missed you on the Patreon hangout last time. We missed you. But I think we had a good time. I think it was a good show. And no worries. I'm okay. I'm getting ready to wrap up because I've been going for a while. So I'm gonna answer a couple more questions and then we will finish the show. Harry Garrison says, now that they've come out official with the premise of Prodigy, what do you think about the concept? It's interesting. If for people who don't know, it's about like kids who find an old Starfleet ship and kind of fly around in it themselves. It'll depend on the show. It'll depend on how the show turns out. The premise itself, didn't strike me as, oh, that's definitely going to be good. But it didn't. I mean, I'm not going to write it off because I haven't even seen it yet. It doesn't even exist yet. So, I mean, you always have to wait until you actually see the show. And 255 AD says, how do you react when people attribute Janeway hate to pure misogyny? I don't think that it is pure misogyny, but obviously misogyny plays a large role in it. Obviously, a lot of the negative response to Janeway as a character was rooted in, or at least strongly influenced by, sexism and misogyny. Like, I don't see how you can argue that. But a lot of the other things about Janeway that people had a problem with may have been part of her character because of the sexism of the writers or the producers. I mean, sexism and misogyny aside, I do think you can legitimately say that Janeway was often a very poorly written character. And often a lot of her shortcomings as a character could be due to the fact that the show was mostly, not entirely, but mostly written by men who maybe just didn't have any insight into writing a female character. Or didn't understand, or for some reason, her being a female character created some kind of obstacle that stopped them from doing justice to that character the way that they should have. But then again, it's tricky with Voyager because there were lots of male characters on the show too, and none of them were any good either. So it's tough to pin down. But no, I wouldn't say it's pure misogyny, but misogyny definitely was a part of it. Okay, this has to be the end. 255 AD says, we didn't hate Janeway because she was a woman. We just would have preferred Sanders as captain. Come on. That's it. Okay, that's the last. I'm gonna end the show on that. Thank you very much. That was the perfect ending. I want to remind you again about the Patreon page, patreon.com/Steve Shives, for all of you who want to support my work. Thanks to all my new patrons, and thanks to everybody who has been a patron, however long you have been. I could not do this without you. Also, don't forget the podcast that I co-host with the great Jason Harding. LetMeListenPodcast.com is where you can go to listen to them. I co-host Late Seating, the movie review podcast, and also the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast. Check them out at the website or on SoundCloud or via RSS on your favorite podcast app. Links to all that are in the description. Also, don't forget about the charity links that have been compiled in the description by our pal Some Random Geek. Check those out. Maybe give a helping hand to some of our friends who need a hand up in these difficult times. All of the charity links have been collated into a single document by Some Random Geek. Link is in the description, and also the link to the Black Lives Matter DC fundraiser. Black Lives Matter DC was mentioned by Alice in the chat a little bit earlier. They are still raising money for their operations, and that link is also in the description. So please consider donating to that as well. I will see you Friday for a brand new episode of Ask Away. And until then, thank you all so much for watching and hanging out with me. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good week.